a mother and her little girl disappear without a trace.
So, she's not with her sister? What do you mean?
Well, that's the reason that we're here, is that the family's calling us, saying we haven't heard from our daughter and our sister.
Suspicion quickly falls on someone close.
I hope they will be found, and I hope we can move forward from this.
His demeanor raises more questions than answers. What really happened behind closed doors? And what dark secrets was he trying to hide?
But to know the police are calling this a homicide, to know that someone has killed a 22-month-old child.
It's crazy.
But you're saying that is not you.
Of course not.
Welcome to the channel. If you think you've heard it all, think again. Hit that subscribe button and stay with us as we break down this case, because the truth isn't always what it seems. On April 14th, 2019, Jasmine Levitt, 25, her 22-month-old daughter, Aaliyah Sanderson, and her boyfriend, Robert Leeming, met up with Jasmine's family for dinner. It was a normal evening, small talk, shared meals, nothing out of the ordinary. But Jasmine's sister, Genevieve Levitt, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Jasmine and Robert seemed distant, more than usual. At the end of the night, Jasmine and Genevieve made plans to meet again for dinner on April 19th, Good Friday. When the 19th came, Genevieve waited, but Jasmine never showed. She called. No answer. She texted. Nothing. That wasn't like Jasmine. She would never miss plans, and she would never ignore her messages. A pit formed in her stomach. Something was wrong. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a step back. To understand what happened next, we need to know how Jasmine got custody of Aaliyah in the first place. Jasmine was just 23 when she became a mother. Aaliyah's father was Robbie Sanderson. He and Jasmine weren't married. At first, everything was okay, but as time went on, cracks started to show. Robbie never wanted to have a child. Robbie began coming home late. Then he started coming home drunk. It only got worse from there. His temper started to flare. One evening, Robbie demanded money. Jasmine refused, but he wouldn't let it go. She locked herself in the bathroom and called the police. When he realized what she was doing, he snapped. He kicked in the bathroom door, ripped the phone from her hands. He didn't hurt her, but the look in his eyes was enough. When the police arrived, Robbie was already gone. Since Jasmine hadn't been physically harmed, there wasn't much they could do. Jasmine and Robbie eventually split up, and that's how Jasmine got custody of Aaliyah. Now, 2 years later, Jasmine and Aaliyah were AWOL. By 5 p.m. on April 19th, Genevieve Levitt had enough of waiting. Jasmine wasn't answering her calls or texts, and that just wasn't like her. She drove over to the house Jasmine shared with Robert Leeming. When she got there, something caught her eye. The basement light was on. That had to mean someone was home, right? Feeling a little relieved, she walked up and knocked on the door. Nothing. She waited a moment, then knocked again. Still no answer. Genevieve rang the doorbell once, twice, over and over, but no one answered. With no response from Jasmine, she left. But Genevieve couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. Something about Robert just felt off. Maybe it's how Jasmine and Robert met. After splitting with Robbie, initially, Jasmine focused on being the best mom to Aaliyah. Family was everything to her. But by 2018, Jasmine was ready to move on. She signed up for a few dating apps and soon found a perfect match, a mature man with a British accent. He was Robert Leeming. And now Jasmine is nowhere to be found. She was supposed to be with Robert, but neither of them were answering Genevieve's calls. By April 21st, Jasmine's mom, Kim, had enough of the silence, so she went over to the house to check in. She knocked, rang the doorbell, same routine, but no answer. Since calls, texts, and visits weren't getting through, Kim decided to try something different. She taped a note to the front door, hoping Jasmine or someone would see it. When Kim first met Robert, she was truly impressed. He was so much better than Robbie, but Robert had his own baggage. Robert had grown up moving from place to place due to his father's military career, which made it hard for him to form lasting friendships. He found comfort in online communities, where he was more outspoken. That's how he met his first wife, a Canadian studying to be a teacher. They married in 2013, had a son, and later divorced in 2017. She was granted full custody, with Robert having supervised visits. Despite the split, he remained in Canada on permanent residency, working as a heavy goods vehicle mechanic. By 2018, Robert was back on dating sites, and that's where he met Jasmine. Their relationship escalated quickly. Within a month of dating, she and Aaliyah moved into his home. Robert adored Aaliyah, happily taking on childcare duties while Jasmine focused on raising her daughter full-time. He cooked, cleaned, and seemed like a supportive partner. But now, why is he supporting Jasmine, completely ignoring her family? 4 days had passed since Kim left the note on Jasmine's door, and on April 23rd, Jasmine was supposed to meet her mother and sister for dinner. But as the evening went on, it became clear she wasn't coming. This was completely out of character, and they knew they had to act. Genevieve went straight to the police to file a missing person report. When they asked if Jasmine might have left on her own, she immediately shut that down. There was no way Jasmine would just disappear without a word, especially not from her family. The police also considered Jasmine's ex, Robbie, but since he had a solid alibi, they quickly ruled him out. Genevieve told them that things between Jasmine and Robert had recently felt off. She couldn't put her finger on it, but something about their relationship had started to feel strange. The next day, April 24th, officers went to Robert's home for a welfare check. They knocked. They rang the doorbell. No answer. The note Kim had left was still there, untouched. But something was different. The small window on the front door had been covered with cellophane, making it impossible to see inside. That was new. Nearby, a garden hose was unwound, as if someone had just used it. Everything pointed to a cleanup. Someone had been home. Someone had been washing things. But without a warrant, the police couldn't force their way inside. They needed more. With no response from inside the house, they called in the fire department and had a ladder truck brought over. The plan was simple. If they couldn't get inside, they'd at least try to see what was going on from the second-floor windows. But when they peered through, they saw nothing unusual. No movement, no sign of Jasmine. Then, the lights downstairs flicked on. Moments later, Robert finally opened the front door. The officers wasted no time. They stepped inside. Robert, still groggy, said he had been sleeping with earplugs in and hadn't heard them knocking. His explanation only got stranger. When pressed about Jasmine, he casually said she was with her sister.
How's it going?
Says she's with her sister.
Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Alright, well, we're just going to take a quick look around. We need to have a look.
So, sorry, you're Robert? Okay. So,
I was sleeping. I sleep with plugs in and...
hey, but we've been here for hours and hours and hours now, hey? Banging on your door and...
Ringing on the doorbell.
Calling your phone.
I've been drinking and smoking a lot, so...
Okay.
Okay.
The whole reason police were there was because her family hadn't heard from her in days. Robert's answers were all over the place.
Okay, so she's not with her sister.
What do you mean?
Well, that's the reason that we're here,
Why do you think we're here?
is that the family's calling us, saying we haven't heard from our daughter and our sister.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, why does that make sense?
Because I haven't heard from her either.
Okay.
First, he acted like he had no idea why the police were there. Then, suddenly, he said it made sense because he hadn't heard from Jasmine either.
So, do you guys get in some sort of argument?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Well, not that you're aware of. Like, you're not making a whole lot of sense to me here, guy.
like, I don't know what, sorry, I'm still getting my bearings here.
At first, he denied having any argument with Jasmine, but then mentioned they had argued weeks ago.
So she's not with her family, but she did threaten to move out. I don't know, like 3 weeks ago, we got into a tizzy. She threw a bunch of my stuff out, food, stuff like that.
She had supposedly been planning to spend Easter with her family.
So what makes you believe that she's with her sister?
She told me that she was going to go and spend Easter with them on Tuesday. He was talking about it, because I don't have my son, so it's kind of depressed about that. And just, drink, a lot of drinking a lot over the weekend, because I've pretty much been on my own, right?
Okay.
But none of that explained where she was now. And then there was this, the strangest part of the whole interaction.
Nothing, like, that would concern me.
Nothing that would concern you. Okay.
Like, I mean, I've had people living with me before, and they move out. You don't hear from
Right, but this isn't just like a roommate. This is your girlfriend.
No, it's more roommate than girlfriend.
Okay.
She's more of a roommate than a girlfriend?
Yeah.
It was an odd way to describe someone he had been living with, but the police weren't there to figure out the details of their relationship. They were there to find Jasmine.
So, the last time that you saw Jasmine was when?
Thursday.
Okay. And at that time, you guys were A-okay or fighting, or what was the status?
I would say in the air, judging by what obviously has gone down.
And she was nowhere in sight.
Does she have a car? I don't know.
No, she doesn't have a license as far as I'm aware.
That's for long.
I do now.
Okay. I'm gonna go make a call to Mom and try and get some more info.
Genevieve had been uneasy about Robert for a while. At their last family dinner, something felt off, but that wasn't the only thing bothering her. Back in December 2018, Jasmine had confided in her. She and Robert had broken up, but decided to keep living together as roommates. It wasn't ideal, but moving out on short notice wasn't easy. The breakup didn't last, and in a few weeks, they got back together. Around that time, Jasmine found out she was pregnant. She later chose to terminate the pregnancy. Then, a few months before she vanished, Jasmine admitted she was struggling. Robbie had given up his parental rights to their daughter, which meant no child support. That left Jasmine scrambling to find a job to support both of them. She was frustrated. She wanted to build a stable life, get a job. Jasmine had been trying to settle down, not run away. As investigators dug deeper into Robert's past, more concerning details came forward. His divorce was ugly. His ex-wife had accused him of emotional abuse in court. Toward the end of their relationship, he was drinking too much and was always angry. She also mentioned his growing collection of guns and knives, which, combined with his temper, made her fear for both her safety and their sons. During their divorce, his ex-wife also discovered unsettling internet searches on his phone. One search detailed how to chain a dog to a tree and abandon it, something he had actually done. Even more alarming, another search involved a mother and child dying in a house fire. Given what had happened with the dog, his ex feared he might act on this search too. With this information and Robert's increasingly erratic behavior, the police decided to arrest him. On April 25, 2019, 10 days after Jasmine went missing, a SWAT team arrived at his home. They attempted to enter through the front door, but it wouldn't budge. When they forced their way in through the back, they discovered that Robert had barricaded the front door with barge poles. That was only the beginning of the strange things inside. Scattered around the house were strips of bacon, one hanging from a dining chair, another stuffed into the cap of a dry sump system in the furnace room. Several spots on the walls had been sanded down and scrubbed clean. Something was definitely off. Police had already obtained security footage of Robert making repeated trips to his garage, so they searched there next. Inside a gun safe, they found multiple firearms and boxes of ammunition. In the garage trash cans, they discovered a partially melted firearm part, infant toys, Jasmine's prescription bottles, and most chillingly, Jasmine's shredded passport. Robert was arrested and taken to the station for interrogation. Robert told investigators the last time he saw Jasmine and Aaliyah was on April 17th. They went for a picnic at Bragg Creek. Afterward, they returned home. Jasmine sat on the couch watching TV while Robert got ready for a date. He claimed they were just roommates and that he had been seeing another woman for a while. According to him, everything seemed fine when he left, but when he got home later that night, Jasmine and Aaliyah were gone. Investigators reached out to the woman he was with that night. She confirmed their date and said they met online in February 2019, about 5 months after Jasmine and Aaliyah moved in with Robert. They had gone on several dates, and he had stayed over at her place, but she had never been to his house. Investigators analyzed his phone data. That's when they discovered that on April 23rd, the day Jasmine and Aaliyah were reported missing, Robert deleted around 30 photos of them, along with a few images of a gun. His phone's location data also placed him in the Bragg Creek area, not just on the day of their picnic, but around the time Jasmine and Aaliyah disappeared. Police knew they had to search Bragg Creek. When they got there, they found a recently used fire pit, but this wasn't for roasting marshmallows. Inside, they found a car seat belt, diapers, toddler shoes in Aaliyah's size, parts of children's books, and a Jungle Book DVD. Scent dogs alerted to the presence of an accelerant, suggesting something had been deliberately burned. Meanwhile, CCTV footage from a nearby gas station showed Robert filling up his car, buying a gas can, and later taking his car for a more meticulous car wash. Investigators knew they had to act fast. The fire pit at Bragg Creek wasn't just some random campsite. It was a potential crime scene. With this new evidence, authorities got another warrant, this time to go over Robert's car with forensic tools. They swabbed for accelerants, checked for traces of biological material, and vacuumed every inch. Detectives went through his phone records again. Deep in his search history was a query from April 16th, one day before Jasmine and Aaliyah disappeared. The search? How long does it take for a body to burn? Investigators now believe they are dealing with a double homicide. But all the evidence against Robert was circumstantial. With no solid evidence to charge Robert, the police had to release him. Robert's life had fallen apart. The authorities have sealed his home.
Pardon me. The door's closed, so I don't know.
I would go through the front. Like there's.
I'm not even going to try and go.
Oh, okay. You just.
I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had enough stress.
Yeah. Okay.
In just a few days, he had lost his job, and his bank account was empty. He spent his days drinking, feeling like the whole world saw him as a murderer. He claimed the police had destroyed his house during their search.
Then the SWAT team came and just mowed me down.
Yeah.
Seriously, just flattened me on the ground and it's yeah, you're under arrest for homicide.
Determined to prove his innocence, he hired a lawyer. Reporters eventually tracked him down outside a pub. He wasn't shy about talking, slurring his words slightly. He just wanted Jasmine and Aaliyah to be safe.
You were kind of the primary suspect in this homicide
I still
investigation. You still are. What are your thoughts about that, and what are your emotions right now? What's kind of going through your head?
It's very stressful, but I hope they will be found, and I hope we can move forward from this.
He stuck to his story. He had no issues with her or her daughter.
No, we were friends. Absolutely friends. And supported each other. I would like, obviously, for them to be found, and for me to be cleared of this.
When the reporters pressed him about the police treating the case as a homicide, he shook his head.
How do you feel about this whole thing? I mean,
Terrible, of course.
but to know the police are calling this a homicide, to know that someone has killed a 22-month-old child.
It's crazy.
But you're saying that is not you.
Of course not. Of course not.
The idea that someone had killed a toddler was unthinkable to him. Then, on May 5th, something peculiar happened with Robert. Two men approached Robert near his home. They recognized him, calling him a legend, but Robert wasn't having it. He was bitter, sick of how his life had tattered. They knew what it's like being screwed over by the system, too. They saw right through the cops' lies and never believed a word of it. Then they claimed they had something he'd want to see. They told him one of his neighbors had swiped a bag of evidence during the police search. They said they had it now, and they were willing to help him out, maybe even get rid of it. No questions asked. Robert hesitated, unsure if he could trust them. But these two guys were connected, real criminals who had been in the game for years. They had a crew, a place where they handled business. No cops, no loose ends. Robert wanted in. He needed to be around people who understood him, who didn't judge, who weren't afraid to play dirty. He agreed to go with them. Inside the warehouse, surrounded by weapons and hardened criminals, he started to let his guard down. At first, he rambled about his past with Jasmine, openly admitting to cheating on her since the beginning of their relationship. He talked about how she had told her family they were serious, but in his mind, it had never been anything more than temporary. Then, as if the weight of everything had finally become too much, he confessed. He admitted to killing both Jasmine and her daughter. Robert didn't move the bodies right away. He waited until the next day. He drove out to the woods near Bragg Creek, choosing a spot he thought was hidden enough. There, he placed the bodies and soaked them in gasoline, not to burn them, but to confuse any cadaver dogs that might come searching. He believed the strong chemical scent would throw off investigators if they ever got close. But he didn't stop there. To make it look like Jasmine had packed up and left with her daughter, he destroyed anything that could tie them to their former lives. He built a makeshift fire pit in the woods and burned everything. Aaliyah's car seat, their clothes, personal belongings, erasing all traces of them. He wanted it to seem like they had simply vanished, as if Jasmine had truly run away and left nothing behind. When it came to his car, he knew he had to cover his tracks. He filled the back seat with mulch. In his mind, mulch smelled like decay, and he thought it would blend with the scent of death, making it harder for search dogs to detect anything unusual. This wasn't just a rushed cleanup. Every detail was planned. Even inside his house, he had taken extra steps, scattering raw bacon around in an attempt to throw off the dogs. He believed pork had a scent similar to human flesh, and if the entire place smelled like it, it might stop the dogs from pinpointing anything incriminating. Then, as if to prove how untouchable he was, he offered to show them where he had hidden the bodies. In the middle of the night, they drove to Bragg Creek, deep into the woods. He led them to the site, not far from where he had burned the belongings. The bodies were exactly where he had left them, wrapped in blue moving blankets and covered with dirt, sticks, and mulch. But what Robert didn't realize was that the moment he led them there, his fate was sealed. His confession, his pride, his need to boast, it was all the police needed. The guys he was with were not hardened criminals. They were undercover police officers. Robert was quickly arrested. DNA confirmed the bodies were Jasmine and Aaliyah. Both had severe head injuries. Jasmine also had a gunshot wound, while Aaliyah suffered spinal damage. Their deaths were ruled homicides. And on May 7th, Robert was charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. His trial began in October 2021. Robert admitted to killing Jasmine, but denied harming Aaliyah. He claimed she fell down the stairs while he was watching her. When Jasmine found her unresponsive, she lashed out at him. He then wrapped her body, cleaned up the scene, and buried both victims over the next few days. But the autopsy painted a different picture. Aaliyah's injuries were too severe for a simple fall. Worse, the medical examiner found injuries to her privates. Prosecutors believed Jasmine caught Robert in the act and he killed her to silence her. Then he murdered Aaliyah to cover his tracks. The judge found him guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison with a chance of parole in 22 years. Justice was served. But there's no victory in a case like this. Jasmine should have been watching her daughter grow up, not fighting for her last breath. Aaliyah should have had a lifetime ahead of her, not an unmarked grave in the woods. No sentence can fix that. No courtroom decision can undo what happened. But what it can do is make sure that the man responsible never gets another chance. It locks the door on his freedom the same way he took theirs away. And while Jasmine's family will always carry this pain, at least they don't have to wonder where he is. They know exactly where he'll be.
I love you girls beyond words. You know that. You're my angels. We were very close. We lived together for a little over a year. And yeah, like I say, always made me feel included. Even their family, if they had a dinner, we were invited, me included. They came to our house and had Christmas.
That's it for today's case. What do you think about Robert's defense? Do you believe his story, or was it all just another lie? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives into cases like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next.